Welcome to Self Wellness.
Another fantastic day, guys, here on Maha with Mike. We're going to be bringing in Nick Holscher and Dr. Judy Mikovits. We're going to be talking about vaccines, tariffs, and measles outbreaks in Texas. But first, I want to dive into Peter Marks. Last week, Peter Marks, director of the FDA Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, he resigned after being given the option he could either leave voluntarily or he could be fired. His resignation letter revealed a deep-rooted anger against the new administration for wanting to conduct proper safety testing on injectable products. That's crazy. Why would anybody be upset about wanting to do testing on something that we're injecting into our body? Hello. Well, yesterday, Peter Marks went on CNN and appeared to make a veiled threat to America regarding man-made biological threats. And I think we're going to go ahead and have my producer roll that clip for you right now before we bring in Nick.
I know one of your biggest concerns as you leave the FDA, and I know you're resigning, but obviously not by choice, you wanted to continue doing your work, is biowarfare. That is a big concern you have because of what RFK Jr. is doing in terms of firings. Biowarfare, what are you talking about?
So let me just back it up, if you don't mind, for one quick sec. I just didn't regulate vaccines. I also regulated innovative biologic products. By leaving, I leave behind what we did with cell gene therapies that could have helped people, for instance, kids with cancer who had no other treatments. Adults with sickle cell disease. I leave behind people who were doing their best to try to speed up treatments for rare diseases. And I also leave behind a group now gutted that was ready to respond to natural and man-made threats. Yep. At any given time, there are many, many viruses that could come, things like Ebola and others that could be very dangerous to our country. We had a group that was prepared to deal with those. Additionally, I can't go into all the details, but there are man-made threats that we were prepared to deal with. Having that capacity means that today I believe we are weaker as a nation, and I believe our adversaries know that we are weaker as a nation because we don't have that capacity.
All right, we got to bring Nick in. Nick, what's your thoughts on that? Welcome to Maha with Mike. Welcome to the show.
First of all, thanks for having me, Mike. And I just want to say, Peter Marks has been at the FDA for about a decade, and the health of America has deteriorated. The COVID-19 mRNA injection debacle is on his hands. He was instrumental in Operation Warp Speed. And we know now just from VAERS, approximately 500,000 Americans may have died from the injections. And so when he claims that all of a sudden there's going to be this void in making sure things are safe, nothing could be further from the truth. And so now he goes on CNN, and he's so angry that he was basically fired from his role there at the FDA. And now that he's so angry, he's literally threatening America with man-made biological threats. And he says he can't get into all the details. So I don't know. He's trying to keep it a secret, or I guess he's trying to invoke fear and try and make, I guess, the new HHS administration look bad for firing him and saying now all of a sudden these adversaries are going to release these man-made bioweapons on us. And so very concerning. It's a great thing he's out of there. Public health servants should not be making such statements on TV. So it's a great thing he's out of there.
Well, and it's because we're entering a new age for pandemics, and when he says that they were preparing for potential man-made biologics, man-made threats, he's directly linking to the same thing that happened with Wuhan, right? And that's what they're referencing.
Right. And yeah, we now know SARS-CoV-2 was engineered in Wuhan in collaboration with America. And so basically, yeah, that got out, killed millions of people, that bioweapon. And then the countermeasures, which they produce to combat against the bioweapons that they create, it's basically this cycle of basically massive profits of what they can do with that. And so, yeah, they make these viruses in biolabs. There's approximately 1,300 BSL-3 biolabs and 15 BSL-4 biolabs in the United States. That was as of 2007. We don't know the current numbers now. Nobody's released them. And so there's so many of these labs, and so many of them will contain viruses, bacteria, and fungi that have been modified to have pandemic potential. And so these are probably sitting in freezers in many of these labs. Any of them can get out. They could be intentionally released. And so, due to this threat that Peter Marks has made, as well as threats by Bill Gates a year ago on BBC, he said there's going to be bioterror attacks while he laughed uncontrollably. And then we have people like Ashish Jha, former COVID czar, who also warned last year that we're entering an age of bioweapons. And whatever that means, he says lots of people are making bioweapons. Well, first, who are these lots of people? Why are they always so secretive and they don't expand when they say this stuff? So we have to act preemptively. We can't let any more people release man-made bioweapons, cause a pandemic. It's got to stop. We got to shut down this gain-of-function research and investigate these laboratories that have these pathogens.
I know you're familiar with the clip, and I want to ask you just to go a little bit off topic. And it's always good in a podcast when you can pivot but bring in relevant things. And I know exactly what you were talking about, like, because that's the United States government, that's the Bill Gates Foundation. They all need to be audited. They all need to be investigated. Like when you said who's behind these new bioweapons, yes, we need to get to the bottom of it. But let me ask you this, as a United States citizen and as a patriot, how concerning was it for you when Elon Musk said, if I expose the true depth of the corruption, they will have me killed? And then he says it's much worse than we know, or it's much worse than you know. Did you see that clip where he said that?
I didn't see the clip specifically, but since you told me about that, and he says basically he'll be killed if he reveals basically what's actually going on, that's very concerning, and that just shows how much is going on behind the scenes and by people who probably everybody knows that are behind such things, will definitely shock people. And, I guess they think people won't be able to cope with this information. But I just want to say, if our federal government is holding anything back, I think the population is prepared to take in basically any information at this point. We've been lied to for so long. Nobody trusts any of the lies propagated anymore. And so, I think it's worth it to get the truth out, no matter the consequence. But hopefully, obviously, they don't get assassinated while doing it. But I guess if that's the case, they should deal with the people that are going to assassinate them.
I think that's the biggest problem that we're having, Nick, is there's so much misinformation in this country. I think misinformation is even deadlier than most of the viruses because the people here are so misconstrued, right? And they rely so heavily. This is not a Democrat or a Republican problem in this country. This is people relying on big pharma and organizations. You look at Pfizer, a company that's been around for over a century, and their goal is not to go and fix and break through and have new technologies that are coming out to prevent diseases. All they want to do is to continue to treat it, right? I saw at a longevity, and I will give a great shout out to Dr. Josh Hellman, an incredible physician. He's the acting director at the Hippocrates Health Institute, and he had shared a clip. And if I shared it with you, I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised. But it was from the Medicaid code book that basically said that anything that is being used on patients to prevent any illness or to do anything other than treating the specific disease will not be funded. And it's like, that's something that I think that code needs to be brought to RFK and be like, here we are with the biggest financial healthcare system in the United States. There's over 100 million people that are enrolled in Medicaid. And when you go in there, they're literally saying, we are not going to fund or give you reimbursements for preventing any illnesses.
Just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And that's basically, in a nutshell, why America is so unhealthy. I mean, to not fund preventative measures and preventative medicines and things you can take, things you can do, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, why wouldn't they want us to not get sick? And obviously, it's clear why they don't, is because then they can sell us the cures. They could sell us the pharmaceuticals that don't fix the root cause, don't fix the root problem, and we're left in a perpetual state of sickness. And we have to subscribe to pharmaceutical interventions that unfortunately most of the time don't work. They just mask the symptoms.
Yeah. Before we roll this next clip, I want to correct myself. It was Medicare, not Medicaid. Medicare Guidelines, Section 2251.3, a treatment plan that seeks to prevent disease, promote health, and prolong or enhance the quality of life, or therapy that is performed to maintain or prevent deterioration of a chronic condition is deemed not medically necessary. That's got to be changed. I want to see if we can roll this next clip here. I think it was from the COVID czar. Drake, if we could roll that for Nick, let's bring that up.
But it's going to take all of us to make that happen. So please, don't wait. Get your COVID shot. Get your flu shot. That's why God gave you 2 arms. Get one in each arm if you want. Go to vaccines.gov, and let's do everything we all can to protect the American people. Thank you.
They're so quick to inject. They're so quick to put in. The American public now knows that 25% of all pediatric profits comes from well care visits. It comes from well visits, right? They're getting big kickbacks and commissions for making sure that a certain percentage of them all get that little injection inside of their arm. What do you think that we're going to have to do? And I know it's going to be stopping misinformation, but Nick, what do we have to do to get people to start thinking outside of the box?
Well, first of all, we have to actually investigate the true safety of vaccines. And going back to what Ashish just said, that we have 2 arms, one for each vaccine. I mean, that goes to show what's happened to our public health officials that used to be in the government, now getting fired. What's happened to them is they've been indoctrinated into what's called vaccine ideology. It's basically a form of false religion where they worship vaccines, and you're not allowed to look into the safety of vaccines. You're not allowed to question the vaccine schedules. You just have to roll up your sleeves and take it in the arm. It doesn't matter what's in it. It doesn't matter how new the technology is. It doesn't matter if it's never been tested properly. You got to take it for the team, even if you die or your family members die. And so that's where people like Ashish Jha are at. And that's why he had made that statement. And so I guess the population will need to understand the true safety of vaccines right now. All of them, literally all of them on the childhood schedule, have not had long-term placebo-controlled trials. Most of them have no placebo group. Most of them are less than 6 months. And so we don't know basically the full safety profile of any of them. And so that's what RFK is going to do. He's going to look at the true safety profile. And I think once people find that out, they're going to realize that basically our public health agencies did not serve us for the past few decades.
That was, another point that I was going to bring up. I saw that there was a fact check that went out across one of the major news outlets over the weekend. And I think that it was regarding Fruit Loops, the cereal that, the kids in this country, they go crazy for. Or maybe it's the Cocoa Puffs that they go cuckoo for. I can't remember the marketing from the 90s and Nickelodeon as I was hurtling over the couch to get back from my bathroom break as my sisters screamed, "It's back on!" I can't really remember, but I know they had said something about a cereal. I'm pretty sure it was the Fruit Loops, and they had fact-checked them. I think it was CNN. They fact-checked RFK and said, "No, that's not true." He said that the ingredients in Canada are different than the ones that are here in the United States. He goes, "That's not true, but there are some added chemicals that are here in the United States." And then they referenced all of the food dyes and the preservatives. And I'm like, here they are. They're saying, wait a second, he was right, but we're going to fact check him anyways, and then put a little correction underneath the fact check. So then what happens is everybody starts sharing that fact check saying, oh, here, see, he was wrong. The ingredients are identical. But then they cut out that segment at the bottom. And I think that's where the American public gets so lost, is because they just believe what they see on that tagline and they're not reading the underlying stuff that's coming out. What do you think is coming? Let me ask you, because I know you're well connected. Are we ready is the country preparing? Should we be preparing for another outbreak?
I think there's definitely plans to unfortunately utilize man-made bioweapons along with their produced countermeasures, which include novel mRNA vaccines, and especially self-amplifying, they call them replicon mRNA injections. That was actually rolled out, just approved in the European Union for those 18 years and older. It's being trialed here in the U.S. for bird flu by Arcturus Therapeutics, funded by the Gates Foundation. It's also been approved in Japan about 2 years ago. They approved these replicon injections. And so what they want is a new pandemic scare, a new pandemic to get people to line up and take these new genetic countermeasures. And, what I have to say is, two things we have to do. First, like I said earlier, go into these labs, these biolabs, thousands of them, and not just in America, they're all over the world. We see illicit ones in Africa actually operated and actually funded by the Gates and Clinton foundations, which was laid out actually by the Russian Ministry of Defense a few months ago. And so basically they're making these viruses, bacteria, and fungi all over the planet. And we got to stop it. We got to clear it out to prevent one of these man-made pandemics from happening again. Now, regarding H5N1 bird flu, which is what is obviously, if you look in the media, is being hyped up as the next pandemic. What's happened there is we actually have a peer-reviewed paper out that suspects this was actually a result of gain-of-function research at the USDA Southeast Poultry Research Laboratory in Athens, Georgia. And so, again, this gain of function, it's got to be shut down. Now that H5N1 strain ended up in over 40 animal species, and so now they're all raising the alarm, saying it's going to spread and it's going to mutate to go human to human. But I mean, there's methods we have to do to counteract that. We can't just mass cull and murder all the birds anymore. We got to get away from that. And we got to go towards basically selective breeding for natural immunity, and install air purification systems in these barns, or air surface purification systems in these closed facilities, as well as iodine-based prophylaxis. And we won't have to murder all the birds. So bird flu is a whole nother topic. But yeah, basically, what we have to pull from this is stop gain-of-function research, clear out all the modified pathogens.
And again, that's why here at Air Water Healing, we're always working on cutting edge technology. Our air purifiers are air surface machines. We're using photocatalytic oxidation, which creates an ionic plasma. And the research has come out from Kansas State University saying that these plasmas will go out. They will deactivate viruses, breaking down through the disintegration of the cell wall, which is a process known as lysis. And most of these purifier companies that are out there, they're just using filters. To learn more about that, guys, you got to go to airwaterhealing.com. But before Nick leaves, I want to talk to you, Nick. Have you seen the call for the massive investment in this so-called cutting-edge vaccine platforms to defend against viruses that don't even exist yet, right? They're framing it as a critical race against time. So they want all of this massive funding. And I'm sure this was all put in by Marks before he left the office, but they want to get paid hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to start playing around in their laboratories to make vaccines for diseases that don't even exist yet.
Yeah, this is what they've been doing for so long that they think, it's commonplace. It's common. We can just get billions and billions of dollars, make these genetic countermeasures against viruses that don't even exist, or do they in their laboratories? Probably a lot of them actually do exist. They just created them, which is pretty disturbing, and constitutes very serious crimes if that's the case. And so I would call for an investigation, a deep investigation into that. But we can't be spending taxpayer money playing make believe with genetic injections that have killed, harmed, and injured millions of people in the past. These past 5 years have been a disaster. I mean, I don't even want to count the number of emails and people that reach out to say that their daughters or 12-year-old daughters are just they died of a cardiac arrest just playing sports, and it's just each day we hear more and more injuries. There's studies coming out now every single day, that are just shocking, and one of the most recent ones regarding these genetic technologies that they're trying to develop against viruses that don't exist. So what's happened is actually these mRNA injections go into the brain. This was shown in a recent Japanese study a few days ago. They go into the brain, and your brain's vessels produce spike protein, express spike protein for 17 months. And this was in stroke patients, so it probably caused their stroke. And this was accompanied by CD4, CD8 immune system cells. So it means there's an autoimmune reaction. So this is disturbing. They have to stop with these genetic countermeasures. They've been dangerous. They've been repeatedly shown to be very harmful. And our funding's got to be averted elsewhere, like averting the chronic disease epidemic that is affecting over 60% of Americans.
And I think that's something that we're going to have to dive deeper into. But before you head out, I do want to ask you, where can we start to draw, and how can we start to get this message out there to where people aren't looking at idiots that are being broadcasted on TV? I think that, we've done a really good job of cutting out the main cable sources. I mean, I had a little bit of hope when Mark Zuckerberg was going on his apology tour saying, hey, the Biden administration was forcing us to do these fact checks. They weren't letting us come through. But I mean, we are seeing progress, right? Did you see Arkansas became the first state? They overruled the FDA, and now they're allowing ivermectin to be an over-the-counter drug. So now people can go out and take care of parasites in the body. I'm going to be bringing on Dr. Judy Mikovits, and I'm sure she's going to be able to dive in even deeper about the parasitic infection, because she's been speaking about it for eons, and now people are finally starting to wake up. But when you start talking about people who do not have common sense and they're getting airtime, I saw a guy yesterday. He was being interviewed, and he was at a Elon Musk protest, and he was just talking about he can't be doing what he's doing. And the guy directly asks him, he goes, what did Elon do that affected your life? He's arrogant. It's just like that. So where's your what do you say? You don't want them stopping billions of dollars going to taxpayers that are dead? You don't want $20,000 a month going into the lawn garden that Michelle Obama had, that's been done since 2017 or whatever that year was. How can we draw more and more people to realize that what they need to do is just rip the television off the wall and become Amish as far as getting your news source?
Yeah, mainstream media, legacy media has become a toxic cesspool of propaganda. And basically, you could call it mind control. I mean, at this point, they are literally propagating. Not only is it the same stories from especially the left-leaning mainstream media, you'll see it's the same stories, the same type of angle that they take, which is always absolutely nonsensical, absolutely fear-driven. It's basically fully fear-driven. They want you to be scared, and a lot of it's pharmaceutical advertisements, and it's just sad at this point. Now we have seen a recent poll was conducted. It's about about 20% of Americans still kind of fully trust the mainstream media. So, basically, I would say at this point, a lot of people have already lost trust in them from the COVID-19 pandemic, and so, but there is that remaining 20% that we are concerned about, that are taking in these just complete lies and absolute nonsense. And so, I think what needs to happen is, people just need to go to other sources. It's time to move away from mainstream media. I get it was big back in the 60s and 70s, and that's all there was. But that's not all there is anymore. We have all these other sources, much more reputable, not funded by Pfizer and co. And so, I urge everybody, please go listen to stations like Lindell TV, like Mike Dillon. They're telling you the truth, and I think the more that mainstream media lies, the more people are going to leave them, and they're going to collapse because their viewership has tanked.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just understanding, like when you see people like Joe Rogan who are outranking every single show that CNN has combined, the podcasts are starting to gain popularity. They can continue to censor us, which is why we're so happy to be on Lindell TV. We're happy to know that we serve an almighty God. Everything that we do, we wear it on our sleeves, and we know that Jesus has already gone before us and paved the way. I'm not afraid to share my faith. He is my Lord. He is my Savior, and a carpenter changed my life over 2,000 years ago. Nick, thank you so much. Do you have any closing thoughts? I would love to help you get your following out there. Can you give us your Instagram handle or a website, or if anybody wants to reach out and learn more, watch you, where can my viewers find you?
Yeah, you can follow my personal X account. It's just at NIC Holscher. And you can also follow the McCullough Foundation X account. I am the administrator there. That's just at McCullough Fund.
Okay. Awesome. We'll reach out to you after the show. We got to get you guys set up as an affiliate. You're talking about air purifiers. We got the best one on the market. So let's see if we can get people out there breathing clean air with you guys and get you guys set up. And we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be bringing in one of my favorite people who just celebrated her 35th birthday. Dr. Judy Mikovits will be on next. We're going to roll to commercial. Thank you, Nick, and God bless.
Thank you.
Are you looking for monthly income without the risk of stocks? Well, here's something you won't hear about on CNBC. There's a unique way to collect royalty checks directly from America's most productive oil fields. No exploring, drilling, or operational headaches. You simply collect checks month after month. The best part? You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. The Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Litchenfield, breaks down what he believes is the #1 loyalty royal play for 2025. So visit LindellOilBoom.com now to learn more. That's LindellOilBoom.com. That's LindellOilBoom.com now to learn more. That's LindellOilBoom.com. Stop buying oil stocks and start collecting oil royalty checks instead.
RFK Jr. recently visited the epicenter of this measles outbreaks in Texas. We're going to talk about that in a second with Dr. Judy Mikovits, but I've got a clip I want to play for you guys before we bring her in. Drake, go ahead and roll that clip from PBS, please.
Hi. Peter. What are you doing home from school?
They sent me home. Measles.
It's either measles or a strange case of red freckles.
You have got a temperature.
They told me 101.1. What's the record?
Never mind.
Oh, are you sure it's the measles?
Well, he certainly got all the symptoms. A slight temperature, a lot of dots, and a great big smile.
A great big smile.
No school for a few days.
Say hello to my dotted son for me. Tell him I'll bring him some comic books, and I'll see you later, dear.
Okay, honey, bye.
Boy, this is the life, isn't it? Yeah. If you have to get sick, you sure can't beat the measles. That's right. No medicine.
Inside or out? Like shots, I mean.
Don't even mention shots. Yuck!
Measles, measles, measles. Well, all the kids have now had the measles.
So have I.
Well, I had them years ago. Looks like the Bradys are finished with the measles.
Hold it. You're not through yet.
Alice, don't tell me you're coming down with the measles.
Oh, I hope so. I'd hate to think I was just learning how to blush at my age.
Not quite the clip I was looking for, but that was a great one. I did send that to him, who was looking for the clip where we had RFK visiting the epicenter, but we'll pull that one up here in a little bit. Let's bring in Dr. Judy and see how she's doing at the young age of 35.
I'm doing great, Mike. No, that was a lot better than any. Come on, don't call it an epicenter. This is just stupid. At
Oh
the
my gosh.
epicenter of the outbreak. Would that be the Brady Bunch household that year? I mean, I'm actually old enough to remember that show, and enjoyed it. And in my case, it's interesting. I was about 5 years old, and I got a lot sicker than that. I had to actually be in a dark room and very light sensitive, had quite, a long time of a fever. And my identical twin and the rest of my siblings are like, I don't remember that. No, I remember it because I got really sick. But again, now I have the strongest immune system, basically on the planet. And again, we've had a measles vaccine since 1963, and yet we're not allowed to use a measles vaccine. We have MMR. And of course, MMR has not only avian leukosis virus, why don't we just call it bird flu? But a lot of cancer causing viruses because of the unchecked manufacture, literally untested manufacture. Nobody's ever looked. I listened to the last segment with Dr. Hulsher, and nobody's ever looked at these tests. So who is criminally liable is not at these shots. Who is criminally liable is pharma. Because is the Health and Human Services, HHS, when all liability was removed from vaccines for injury by Ronald Reagan in the 1986 Act, a sign of a pen, federal act. It was placed on Health and Human Services. And Dr. Hulsher said, oh, viruses that don't exist? No, they're injected in every single shot every single year, just as SARS-CoV-2 was injected in every polio vaccine since 2004 when it was made. And on our website, you can see the Journal of Virology paper. Your military, your Army Institute of Infectious Disease, Boston's, Harvard, scientists, Berlin. The first author is Moore, M-O-O-R-E, and it's all about SARS-CoV-2. So SARS-CoV-2 couldn't have possibly caused the first pandemic called COVID-19. Oh, it's not the first pandemic. It was Ebola in 14 to cover up the measles epidemic in 2014 at Disneyland. And all of that was tested. This is Andy Wakefield. No, when you have MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella, 3 RNA viruses in a single shot, along with every kind of contaminant, including H5N1, H3N1. The papers are right there. They published the paper showing you hundreds, if not thousands, of family viruses, including dog viruses, parvoviruses, in all of these shots. And so, Bobby Kennedy is out there and make it transparent to all the world exactly what your CDC, your FDA, they've injected these bioweapons into the most vulnerable experimentally without informed consent, by doctors who are removed of liability, but your Health and Human Services is not. So every member of Congress, from the Senate Majority Leader on down, is guilty of federal crimes. These aren't just fire you. These are federal crimes. And when people like Elizabeth Warren and everybody else, especially Bernie Sanders, who sits there and says, bring back polio, yeah, you just renamed it. The acute flaccid myelitis. acute flaccid paralysis. We've been fighting this in the corruption called vaccine court for me personally from 2015 through 2019. And I can show you every one of these injuries. And they knew exactly who they would hurt and how injuries, the devastating injuries that these COVID manufactured RNA, don't call them little mRNA, because it's manufactured. After our science paper came out in 2009, showing you every chimera, showing you at least 8 different strains in that single paper of an XMRV, deadly snake venom and on up, spike proteins that cause abortion. It's not an autoimmune response when E4 and CD8 are in your brain trying to clear the inflammation. That's what your immune system is supposed to do. This is criminal fraud by every layer of your medical industry, including Peter McCullough, by the way, because he's out perpetrating fraud, and this is not okay. And Bobby has a big job to do because, as you showed in the last segment, Americans can't understand this because their MDs, their medical deities, their doctors are lying to them because they're being served. They serve another God other than you and I serve Jesus Christ. And we won't allow children to be injured. Measles is a simple disease in people with clean sanitation. Suzanne Humphreys, she wrote the book, about this. Dissolving Illusions is about her journey as an MD. But again, we've been fighting this fight for decades. This is just a rinse and repeat, as you just said. And this is criminal fraud, not only on the part of the media, but on everybody else who stands there and even uses the word vaccine inappropriately. It means cow. Vaca means cow, vaccination. My iPad is sitting on the 1828 Noah Webster's Founder's Father Bible. And here's the dictionary. Here's the Founder's Bible as to, what these shots are. If it doesn't have cow blood in it, folks, it's not a vaccine. So start over. It's, nothing that is manufactured, again, since 2009, when our paper came out in Science, October 23rd, 2009, showing a new family of deadly cancer causing and neuroimmune disease causing viruses, weaponized to parasites that rob oxygen and turn on the antivirus, your X chromosome. This is what they don't want you to know. And they're going to cover this up and create the cures are deadlier, as we know. Run death is near, remdesivir, AZT. This is AIDS. These are acquired immune diseases. And this is what the people, the American people, need to wake up to the fact that you've been poisoned by your Health and Human Services and every member of Congress that took pharma money or any money. This was settled in 2011. Oh, the science is never settled, but the crimes were settled. And your FBI, your Ninth Circuit Court, and everybody else covered this up, jailed us, took away the intellectual property. We just produced with Global Healing, thank God for Ed Group, John Group, and Global Healing, we just produced it's called Oncogen X, the drug we patented it in 2010 to follow our paper, to follow our diagnostic tests for every variant, and that drug for every spike protein. It's called Oncogen X for the so-called turbo cancers that they have weaponized against you and detonating with those Lidos. Lidos is your cancer contractor, your NGO for the National Cancer Institute when I led the lab of antiviral drug mechanisms and left the Cancer Institute to go to Epigenetics Pharmaceuticals in Santa Barbara, California, to work with Genius Biomed and develop these cures. Well, I got sick of waiting for people designing the next pandemic, and Jerry Norskog and Ed Group, thank God for Ed Group, and I just went out there and said, will you manufacture it for us? Let's get it out there. You'll have it in doctors' hands, in clinical trials, in indigenous people, in veteran administrations, and for, hey, you want to hear $500 a month or less, to get these to stop this plague of corruption that is that books, we started writing that book in 2014 when I met Brian Hooker, when he put on at Dana Gorman's Thrive event for those crimes, August 29th. It was called Thrive. I still have the entire program. And Brian Hooker put CDC criminal William Thompson's handwriting of his notebook page that said, what are we going to do about the problem with the blacks? Oh, you mean they get sick from MMR? Oh, and how many people were murdered? Well, Timothy Cunningham. You know, who covered it up in Congress? I might just say he's Secretary of State now. Did nothing. 2014. Oh, but NPR, they created a little Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone and murdered 28,000 or more black people. The book is called Called for Life by Dr. Kent and Amber Brantley. No, we can beat Ebola, folks, but the only way to do it is never get another shot to destroy every one of these gain-of-function cell lines, and the cures are all in the laboratories, and all the American people need to do is stop the fear porn, support Secretary Kennedy and President Trump, and clean up the murder of millions of Americans now. No more fear porn. The viruses already exist. They're in every single shot. The mRNA is criminal and murder. So premeditated murder, Elizabeth Warren, stop it.
You mean Pocahontas?
Yeah, I don't care. At the end of the day, this is premeditated murder. Hey, I'm a Cherokee and I don't like it. I'm blonde and blue-eyed too. But I don't like it. We're going to help the indigenous people who they poisoned all their life and taken advantage of. And I'm going to call Dr. Daniel Newsom in Idaho today. And why don't we talk about the victories? Why don't we talk about the health freedom law in Idaho, the best in all the world and all this land? Health freedom. Leslie Manukian, Arlfeld, Sarah and team, a team effort, more than 10, 11 years. Governor Little signed it into law, improved it. Now you can have those drugs, Neurogen-X for the mind problems, the Parkinson disease, the autism, the MECFS, I don't care what you call it, chronic Lyme, it's NeuroAIDS. So in addition to Oncogen-X, we're the epigenetics, the environment, we're making Neurogen-X, and we're going to get it in the Karlfeldt Center. We're going to get it in the hands of PI, Dr. Daniel Newsom, for the indigenous people. We're starting in Idaho, but we're going to the veterans for the prostate cancer for the men throughout this country. Genius Biomed and Omnitura developed it with Juan Quijong, with Johns Hopkins University, Stephen B. Balin, my former colleague in the epigenetic space, for 3 decades, 20 years, we've been waiting for this. So a month ago, I saw enough damage and I said, you know what? We're done with this. We're just going to make it and we're going to get it to the people now. We're going to deliver on Trump Kennedy's promise. Under $500, you think that's something Medicare wants to buy a month to cure these deadly diseases they caused? The infection is not the disease. The disease is the complete and utter destruction of the immune system by bypassing the innate immune response with these injections. We could stop this if we simply stop all shots. Moratorium on all shots. until you do your homework, folks. And that's going to take a long time because I've got a lot of data in the freezers, and we're not waiting. I'm tired of listening to the victims of their clinical trials. They knew what these things were going to do. They covered it up. John Coffin, Jonathan Stoy with the Wellcome Trust in UK, and Tony Komaroff. Look up who those people are. Well, they were the reviewers of our science paper. So you think you got fraud in the literature, in the lay press? No, your fraud is at the highest levels of your so-called medical literature that lie to doctors like McCullough, Malone, and everybody else. But anybody participating in those lies, as they are still doing, will be held criminally liable. I will not ever stop.
Speaking of vacca, which was the Latin word for cow, where the original smallpox, or there was the cow, it was the, what was it? I believe it was the cowpox, right? It was the original
Correct.
vaccine that was delivered. They were taking actual
Correct.
vials. They were taking the blood from the cow, and that's what they were injecting, real parts of the actual virus to help build the immunity, unlike the bioweapons which they've unleashed today. I want to get your thought. I think they've made a really good step in the right direction. I know it's not enough, but did you see that Arkansas went around the FDA's recommendation and they just approved ivermectin to be sold over the counter?
Well, that's great. I mean, but ivermectin is not going to be the only cure for these other variants, which we know. So it's a great start, but ivermectin and others should never have FDA authority. A drug that was made in 1953 and has been in human use for how many years? You know, that has the FDA has no authority. The FDA has no authority. The FDA has no authority. If I can't say that loud enough, I don't have to make label claims, for my God. These are natural products. They're botanicals and fermentation products, not synthetic drugs. Everolimus is not rapamycin. Rapamycin comes from the dirt. But our dirt is dead because glyphosate and all these deadly weed killers are not weed killers. They're soil killers. So now our soil is dead. Our GMO plants are not food. They're nothing genetically modified, nothing against God. They're bioweapons. And they've destroyed or are attempting to destroy our food supply. So yes, Arkansas, every state at every level, love it at every level. Everybody stand up there like Idaho, like Arkansas. You know, we're going to get this, and the people will come to us. You want the cure? I mean, we can't make Oncogenics fast enough. We've held that patent since 2011. And denied by the FDA cures to Ebola in 14. I spent my 50th birthday 17 years ago in pharma, in J&J, in pharma, in Merck, in New Jersey with Jerry Norskog. Why wasn't it done 17 years ago? Showing them how easy it is to take a botanical drug that satisfies the 2004 FDA Botanical Drug Guidance Act. What does that mean? They have no authority. They lie to you on TV, put a peel, spray it on your fruits and vegetables, or Tylenol, and say that was grandfathered in under that 2004 Act. No, Tylenol is a liver killer. And they knew it. They knew it was poison. This has to end. And the only way to end it, as in Plandemic the Musical, is if we end it ourselves. And we smile and we thank Jesus Christ and we say, you know what? Here are the solutions. I'm not going to be a part of fear porn ever again. Transparency is what this administration wants. I'll tell it to you as plainly as I can, and I'll show you every single, as I always had, proof of the data. I'll come on tomorrow morning and show you that PMC paper. I'll email it, and you can show the hundreds of viruses, including parvovirus in every polio shot. All we have to do is stop measuring. So when you said cow blood, okay, nothing can be called a vaccine unless it has cow blood in it. I made every single fermentation product I make with calf serum. Do you know how I test the calf serum at the end of every year? Oh, for the one that causes cancer, that transforms cells quickly enough so it can produce the virus out of the cell line. It's not a cell wall, it's a cell membrane. Just correcting some terms you used in the last few minutes. But again, we're being lied to because the science is being censored. The science has been censored, and the scientists murdered Jeffrey Bradstreet, Timothy Cunningham, on and on and on. The scientists murdered, or I call it J6, kidnapped, held in jail, their personal and intellectual property. The intellectual property is between me and God, unless I open my mouth and remove all doubt. And the first thing that can go down, that I'm a fool, by the way, and I'm not a fool. I will not, and I disclose. But at any rate, that's the Bayh-Dole Act. That's pandemic. That should have gone down a long time ago, President Trump. There is no such thing as a public-private partnership. I work for the National Cancer Institute, as the fact checkers say, for a brief stint. 22 years is not a brief. And when I left, that intellectual property that belonged to the taxpayer was immediately at Epigenics Pharmaceuticals, May 14th of 2001, turned in to diagnostics and cures for every variant of every spike protein, of every poison virus they created in attempt to destroy our mitochondria and our X chromosomes. Well, it failed. They can't touch our X chromosomes. So, by the way,
No, they
that's
can't.
those are the two things that your mother gives you, that you inherit from your mother. And this is
My
not
mama.
okay. Your mama.
Not only okay, not only is it not okay, but it's just absolutely criminal. Before you go, I want to share one thing with you, but I want to show you a quick little video. And for anybody who's watching, when she talks about Dr. Group with Global Healing, the facility that they have out in Arizona is impeccable. It is the most incredible facility I've ever seen. I've got a quick little clip here just to show the raw plant material sitting in the glass jar where they're playing frequencies and they're doing all of the testing. Drake, roll that clip for me real quick.
Sounds good. All right, so as you can see here, we have a long line of mixtures that we have in all glass vessels. We are the only facility in the United States that uses all glass production vessels. This is one step of our glycerisomal technology. This is called the maceration step. You can look down in here if you want to get the cameras in here, and you can see.
Yeah, that makes me cry tears of joy.
Absolutely incredible what that man does. I don't know if we're going to be able to play it for it. We're not going to be able to play it, but I'm going to send it to you. But I'm going to give you a little clip of what I was working on. I couldn't get it to you by your birthday, but I'm going to let you hear a little preview. This is for the Patriot.
Dr. Judy in the house with a champion grin. Truth sharper than a scalpel, steady and bold. Standing tall through the storms, her story is gold. Happy birthday, Judy, flag flies high. Fire in the ring with the courage to try. Nation's heartbeat, through the spark in the crown. Dr. Judy, patriot who won't back down. Scars tell the journey of battles she won. Words cut deep, yet she stays in the sun. Wisdom in her voice, every move is precise. She's the queen of the truth, won't repeat it twice. Happy birthday, Judy, flag flies high. Fighter in the ring with the courage to try. Nation's heartbeat, through the spark in the crown. Dr. Judy, patriot who won't back down.
Dr. Judy will not back down, and I want to let you know, Maha Mike, we've had a lot of fun with you. You know I like working on writing songs, but you're an incredible patriot. I want to close this out with a little prayer. And I just want to say that, you know, what you're working on with Dr. Group is absolutely incredible. He's such a true patriot and such an incredible man. You know, I always joke around when people talk about chiropractors not healing people. And I say that, you know, Dr. Group is one of those people that has more knowledge in his fingernail than most doctors have in their entire body. And it's because he understands the root cause. And I know that you're one of those people that's getting.
the best birthday present I could have possibly had was to get that call. I'd asked him about, I called him February 4th and I said, I got to see you now. I couldn't stand to watch it any longer. He said, I'm in Paris. How about Wednesday in Houston? And we knocked this out. And that plant, every time I see that manufacturing, I cry because I couldn't get that done when I was jailed in 11 in my career over. And he did it. And now we're producing those beautiful solutions, according to God, according to nature. I couldn't have a better birthday present, but the song's good too. I like that.
Well, listen, before you go, I want to have you stay in the background because I have to ask you one question before we let you go. But dear Heavenly Father, I just ask that you put a hedge of protection over Dr. Judy. You protect her work, and let's just get this product out here to everybody. Let's get it to the people that need it the most, which is every single human breathing person on this planet. Dear Heavenly Father, you did not get nailed to a cross for us to have to suffer from the tyrants that are trying to kill us and to calcify our pineal gland and disconnect us from our Creator. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. That's been another great episode of Maha with Mike. Guys, we will see you on Friday. Dr. Judy, don't go anywhere.